smartphones and social media are causing irreparable damage to childhood. Whatever measure you look at, whether it's increase in suicide, self-harm, rise in anxiety and depression, children feeling that their lives are lonely or not worth living, all these things have rocketed since smartphones and social media became widely adopted by children from kind of 2014 onwards. And it hasn't just happened in the UK, it has happened around the world. And we're now seeing the impact in this in children's mental health, in educational attainment, in all sorts of ways, and younger, with even small children now having their development held back by being glued to screens rather than experiencing the physical world as our brains are designed to be. And so I think there's growing consensus that more needs to be done by the government. Certainly if social media and smartphones were a drug, they would absolutely be withdrawn from the market. They've never been shown to be safe to children. They were never designed for children. And yet somehow we're allowing these enormous tech companies constant access into our children's lives through the digital world. So there's a lot of consensus from MPs that much more needs to be done.
There are a lot of senior male MPs, if I can put it like that, and not enough young mother MPs who really know how bad this problem is. How are you going to overcome that? Perhaps you might describe it as an education gap.
Well, there were a lot of male MPs there, actually, and I think the main dividing line is the difference between those who have children, particularly teenagers, and those who don't. And I think for people who don't have teenagers, or whose teenagers are now grown up and perhaps my age, they just didn't experience the addiction and the problems associated with the virtual world. And I think, it's very difficult for us to imagine living in a world where our children walk down the streets and they could be accosted by thousands of people demanding intimate photos or telling them to end their own lives. But this is what's happening online. But if you're in your 50s and 60s, if you don't engage in those apps, it's quite hard to believe that this is real. But it is real, and it's damaging our children. And just like we wouldn't let children buy tobacco or drive a car, we shouldn't be letting them have unfettered access to a product that really is destroying their childhood.
So Miriam, do you have a solution? Would you have an age limit?
Yes, I think there's a wide range of solutions. I proposed 7 things that the government could do this morning. Firstly, we need to raise the age of social media from 13 to 16. We need to make sure that age verification works. So you can't just tick a box and say you're 16, but actually you're 12. I think there's a lot more that the tech companies need to do. We need to get a grip on internet pornography, because that is really harming particularly young boys, but also having an effect on young girls. There's a wide range of things that the government could do. But I think if we think back to COVID, the government passed a huge piece of legislation in just 24 hours. So how can anybody say that we can't do something in the last 6 months of Parliament that will seriously rescue our children?
Make that woman Prime Minister.